Hello and welcome back to another edition of Viper Bites. I'm Matt Donnelly, and this is a playoff edition of the Primetime Previews. This week, we have the NFC Conference Championship going down here between the San Francisco 49ers, who entered this contest 13-4, heading to Philadelphia to take the 14-3 Eagles on head-to-head. Now, last week, the 49ers, they took care of the Dallas Cowboys 19-12, and prior to that in the wild card round, they easily handled the Seattle Seahawks 41-23. Now the Eagles, you want to talk about easy ways to the conference championship? How about the largest victory in a playoff game between divisional opponents since 1970 when the Eagles took on the Giants and they defeated them 38-7. Unlike that AFC Championship contest, this is the first time in which the Eagles and the 49ers have faced off this season. Although once the 49ers started putting together a pretty impressive winning streak, see what I did there? This game was destined to happen. Now for the 49ers, we know that both of these defenses can get the job done. And for the 49ers, it starts with Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, and All-Pro Fred Warner. Now, since November 24th, Nick Bosa has 8 sacks. The only player that has more in that time frame is Eagles edge rusher Hassan Reddick. So, hey, we know we are going to get some action off the edges this week. Now, Bosa, he led the NFL in sacks with 18.5 while posting a 29.9 sack rate and 31 quarterback hits this season. From a fantasy perspective, this 49ers defense ranked first in the regular season in fantasy points allowed, surrendering 15.54 per game. However, their pass defense, it allowed the 6th most fantasy points to receivers this season, allowing 36.26 and 16 scores on 2,841 yards surrendered to the position this year. Now, offensively, this 49ers squad presents many challenges, even for a defense as good as the Eagles. One thing to closely monitor is that calf of Christian McCaffery, who was spotted getting a little bit of treatment there, getting a little bit of rub, stretching it out throughout that Dallas Cowboys contest on the weekend. Now, I don't want to take anything away from this Cowboys defense, but you have to figure that McCaffery calf injury had to play a factor in his 10 carries for 35 yards. Elijah Mitchell, he led this 49ers team in both carries with 15 and rushing yards with 51 in that game. Now, I'm not entirely sure why the Giants decided to abandon the run game last week there. I mean, on Saturday, Saquon Barkley, he was averaging 6.8 yards per carry, and that included a 39-yard romp earlier on the game. He had just 9 carries. You've got to get more than 9 carries to your best player, and I expect the 49ers to maybe give Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell a little bit more run than what Saquon Barkley received last week. On the season, the Eagles, they have allowed 121.4 yards rushing per game. Now, that number, to their credit, they saw that as a major weakness on their team, and they went out there and they addressed it with the signings of Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh early in the season to solidify that rotation. Not to mention, a lot of that yardage was piled on after the injury to Jordan Davis. I mean, this dude's a monster. He's a mountain of a man plugging up the middle of that Eagles run defense. Guess what? He's back. He was back last week. Now, Brock Purdy, he saw his streak of 7 consecutive games with at least 2 touchdown passes and last week. But maybe more impressive than that streak is a streak that the rookie has the 49ers on right now. 8 straight victories. In this offense, they don't ask you to do a whole heck of a lot. I mean, look, they ask you to get the ball into playmakers' hands, and they ask you not to turn over the ball. And I would say 13 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, that basically fits what Kyle Shanahan wanted to accomplish. Now, from the strange but true category, with Purdy winning last week, he secured his 2nd victory as a rookie quarterback in the playoffs. He joins the ranks of Joe Flacco and Mark Sanchez as the only rookie signal callers to win 2 playoff starts. Now, as good as this Eagles back end has been, and it's been good. We'll get it down here in a second. We'll touch on that just in a moment. I really can't wait to see what Brandon Aiyuk is capable of. We have watched him progress throughout this season. And last week, he was turning Cowboys defenders inside out in coverage. And he just didn't happen to get the ball as much as you'd like to get him. 2 catches, 26 yards on the season. Aiyuk is just one of 22 pass catchers to finish with more than 1,000 yards receiving, and he did so on just 78 receptions. Now, 17 of those 78 receptions were coming on plays greater than 20 yards down the field. Now, the last time Brock Purdy faced Jalen Hurts, fireworks were going down. Oklahoma, Iowa State, Hurts and the Sooners, they defeated Purdy and Iowa State 42-41 in overtime. In that contest, the two quarterbacks, they would combine for 678 total yards and 11 touchdowns. Now, I'm not going to say that's happening this week, but hey, it's fun to look back on that. Hypothetically speaking, say the 49ers win this game, they go into the Super Bowl, and heck, they win that game too. This offseason, it becomes a lot more interesting. Will the 49ers remain invested in their draft capital in a move that landed them Trey Lance, or will Brock Purdy get a chance to defend the title and become a Nick Foles type legend in the Bay Area? Now, regardless, I think it's safe to say that Jimmy Garoppolo, his time in San Francisco, it's come to an end. Now, let's hope that Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams don't play around and mess around pre-game there in Philadelphia this week. After all, Eagles fans, they didn't take too kindly to Santa Claus coming to town all them years ago. I'm pretty confident they would not really appreciate anyone messing with their kicker. Now, turning our attention to the Eagles sideline, I mentioned earlier the 49ers, if they're going to give up fantasy production, it's probably going to come in that passing game. They have struggled at times at defending opposing wide receivers. And you know what? Most of that, it's quite noticeable coming out of the slot, and the 49ers are going to need Jimmy Ward to step up for this one. CeeDee Lamb, he got the job done both on the outside and out of the slot, accounting for 117 of Prescott's 206 passing yards last week. CeeDee Lamb is the first Cowboys player with 10-plus receptions and 100-plus receiving yards in a playoff game since Michael Irvin back in 1994. And that happened against the 49ers, and that's per NFL research. Now, the Eagles, they have one thing going that the Cowboys simply did not, and that is two capable wide receivers. Now, I have to believe that Dallas, they really missed having a player such as, Amari Cooper last week. Now, San Francisco, it's as good as it gets when it comes to defending short passes. In fact, they're the best in the league at doing so. But A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, they see 21% and 14% of their targets, 20-plus yards downfield, and they have posted an ADOT of 12.1 and 9.6, respectively, this season. When it comes to defending these types of passes, the 49ers secondary, they're in the bottom 10 in the league. You know that Jalen Hurts, he had to have seen Dallas and what they were able to do, taking a couple shots down the field, especially against Demamore Lenoir just a week ago. Now, I'm going to take a wild guess here and say that the Eagles, they're going to take more than a few shots down the field this week with Lenoir in coverage. Last week, the Eagles, they used the Giants game as a get-right type game, getting back to what they had done earlier in the season, and that was basically putting teams away in the first half. They built a 28-0 lead heading into halftime, and Philadelphia, they were able to get both Jalen Hurts and Lane Johnson out of the game early, getting them a little extra rest, and, more importantly, avoiding any kind of injury that could happen late in that contest, which has to be a benefit heading into this NFC Championship contest, especially when you're facing a defense as physical as the San Francisco 49ers. Now, San Francisco has that top-rated defense unit, but the Eagles' run game is just as impressive. Jalen Hurts, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, they all scored last week on the ground, and Gainwell, he would finish with 112 yards on 10 carries, while Miles Sanders, he was fifth in rushing this season with 1,269 yards. He would have 90 yards himself there on 17 attempts. Well, a deeper look at this backfield, well, at least looking at that first half and how this backfield kind of shaped out, Sanders, he led this backfield in opportunities with 13, while Gainwell and Scott, they combined for 7. The Eagles team, they could choose to take advantage of the 49ers and their struggles in that intermediate and deep passing game. Or they could go punch for punch, blow for blow, strength versus strength in this run game against the 49ers. The Eagles, hey, they're not afraid to win dirty. They're not afraid to let it fly and get fancy with everything. This is a team that can win on the ground. It's a team that can win in the air. And it's a team that can win with defense. Then again, when you convert 10 of 14 on third down, like they did against the Giants, you pretty much can do whatever you please. As for the Eagles defense, Philadelphia ranks 17th in fantasy points per game allowed to running backs, allowing 22.26 this season, which is basically in the middle of the pack, while sitting 8th in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position at 30.14. Philadelphia, they led the National Football League this season in sacks with 70, which is 15 more than the next closest team. One area in which teams have had some moderate success is working against the Eagles out of the slot. Last week, Avonte Maddox, he was inactive because of that toe injury. Richie James, oh man, Giants fans, I am sorry. Richie James was so good during the regular season. If he figured out how to catch the ball against the Eagles, he was in line for a big day. Now, when you're looking at this Eagles secondary, there's a reason why the slot is the path of least resistance. Both Darius Slay and James Bradbury have been top corners this season on the boundary. And then you've got a guy named Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who basically led the National Football League in interceptions despite missing 5 contests. San Francisco, they present a challenge unlike any other team that you're going to face all year. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, these guys are always a threat after the catch. Meanwhile, Brandon Aiyuk, he may be the best 49ers offensive player all season long, and we still don't show him the love that he deserves. I mean, he's been disrespected all season. We kind of forgot about him. Now, here's what I want to see. Can this Eagles front, which is basically 8 deep, do what the Cowboys were able to do and make Brock Purdy look like a rookie at times? Or does Kyle Shanahan and company have something special up their sleeves to handle this vaunted past Eagles rush defense? This, my friends, this is where this game is going to be won. In the trenches, the Eagles defense versus that 49ers offense. Woo! I am excited about this one, and you should be too. Let me know who you have advancing to the Super Bowl. Will it be Fly Eagles Fly, or will it be the Niners gang here? Man, let me know. Get in the comments below and head over to fantasypoints.com today and get 30% off your subscription right up until the Super Bowl. You do not want to miss out on that opportunity. And we will see you at the Super Bowl.